This is our shelter in this time of storm, kind of on the road crew. We're here in Gatlinburg, as most of you know. 2 weeks ago today, this community suffered tremendous loss and horrible fires that hit this area, and probably, my understanding, the worst fires ever in the state of Tennessee and maybe eastern United States. And this community has been devastated by the horrendous fires. And we're here this morning interviewing Brother Rutherford. Brother Rod preaches for the church here in Gatlinburg, and as maybe many of you know, the church building here in Gatlinburg was totally destroyed, and we're going to talk about that and some of the things surrounding the recovery. And we're just happy to have Brother Rod Rutherford with us this morning. And he's widely known across the Brotherhood for his good work and mission work for many, many years. And I'm glad you could be with us today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
First of all, if you would tell us a little bit, you were telling me earlier, tell us a little bit about the history of the Gatlinburg Church.
Well, the Gatlinburg congregation began, I understand, in 1958. The church began meeting in the convention center here. Met there for about 6 years, but in 1964, the church building was opened. The building was the church was primarily started by the late Creed Spurgeon, and members of his family continue to be members active in the church to this day. But the building was opened in 1964. It was a unique building. It was built A-frame to fit into the mountain setting.
Right.
Beautiful wood paneling inside. Many people commented on the beauty of it. And we had recently just gone through a period of repair and remodeling. We had spent several years and several $1,000s getting it just the way we wanted it. We'd replaced the painting behind the baptistry with a mural. And the Sunday before the building burned on Monday, I was talking with David Barton and Woody Luna, two of our members, and who've been very hard workers in getting the building back in shape. And I said, you know, we've done just about everything we need to do now to get our building where we want it. The following day it was gone.
Oh my.
But to go on with the history, the church building was opened in 1964. The design of the building came from the chapel at Vanderbilt University. One of the members of the church, J.D. Tant, was an architect. He incidentally was a great-grandson of the famous Texas preacher J.D. Tant.
Wow.
But he designed the building based on the one that was on the Vanderbilt campus. Ours was a scaled-down version of it.
Neat.
In the Gospel Advocate in 1970, I think it was November of 1970, on the front page of the Advocate was a picture of our building, covered the entire front page, and inside was a story by Brother Spurgeon telling how the last penny had been paid that was owed on the building.
Wow.
So it was built, opened in '64, it was paid for by 1970. A lot of brethren around the country helped pay for it. I understand from our sister May Chambers, a member of the church here, and the daughter of Brother Spurgeon. She's been a member of the congregation since the beginning.
Wow.
But she told me they would get envelopes of money, sometimes collections from children's classes, and it might be $3 or $4, you know, but other people would send $5 a week, and that's how they were able to finance the building and to pay it off.
Having lived here in this area, and we have a great love for the mountains and for Gatlinburg and certainly the church in Gatlinburg. And I remember our early years. Brother Lemons was the preacher at Gatlinburg for many, many years.
Right.
And folks not from here may not realize the Gatlinburg congregation has been rather small through the years, but always a voice in the community. Part of the loss of the building, you lost the equipment for the low wattage FM radio station that you broadcast here in the community.
Right.
I remember, through the years, I suspect there are around, particularly the eastern United States, there are probably literally thousands and thousands of our brethren who've worshiped in the Gatlinburg building, who have come to the mountains for vacation and retreat and so forth.
Right.
And it's one of the things I always enjoyed about the Gatlinburg church. They always involved the visitors. Visitors were often involved in conducting the worship and so forth.
Well, there was a reason for that. Sometimes we did not have enough male members who could participate, and we had to use visitors. After I started here, I'm in my 11th year with the church, but when I first came, we had a song leader who was in the early stages of ALS. He eventually had to give that up, but many Sundays we didn't have a song leader. And when people would come in, after I'd get acquainted, I'd say, "Do you lead singing?" And we might get a song leader at the very last minute. But this man, his name was Don Griffin, his son Andy, who is a teacher down at near Knoxville, started driving up, and for nearly 10 years he drove up and led our singing.
That's
our
great.
singing now is led by Kyle Chambers, who is the grandson of Brother Spurgeon.
Wow, that's neat.
But yeah, we often use the visitors, and we still do occasionally, but we're at the spot now where we have enough men to cover all the bases most of the time, unless somebody's out.
That's good, that's great.
And concerning the size of the congregation, Sister Chambers told me that the largest that she's ever known the congregation to be is to have 35 actual members. Now, our attendance will be much larger during the tourist season. We can have 100, 150, 200 at times, but we only have 31 members at the present time. We got up to 34, but we had several who passed away, and so down again, you know.
Brother Rutherford, in your years of preaching, have you ever been a part of a congregation that had this kind of a loss? The loss of their facilities and so forth?
No, I haven't. This is the first time.
I had one time years ago as a young fella in my 20s. Our church building burnt, and so I wasn't a total loss, but I can somewhat sympathize and understand. But if you would tell us a little bit about just the emotion of the congregation, how you all have dealt with this, how it has affected you all and your members emotionally and so forth.
Well, I suppose it's affected different people probably in different ways, but we have 3 families in the congregation who lost their homes. And so they suffered the loss of their home and all of their worldly possessions in it, all the memories and sentimentalities associated with that. But at the same time, they suffered the loss of their place of worship.
Absolutely.
And all that meant to them. And so it's been very difficult. One of our ladies who lost her home is Sister Tant, the widow of J.D. Tant, who designed the building. And she had a beautiful home that they had built, and she's lived in that home for more than 50 years. And the Gatlinburg Church has been her church home for 50 years or more.
Absolutely.
But she's lost both of them, but she's handling it very, very well. She has a very good attitude. Another one of our members who lost her home was Janet Howe. Janet is originally from Mount Juliet over in Middle Tennessee. She came here about 10 years ago, I believe. She had children living in the area, and she came for the purpose of being near her children because she wanted to get them back into the church. She had fallen away from the church and then had come back before she had moved up here. But she lost her home. She had a son, Michael, who's disabled, who lived with her, so he lost his home. She had a daughter, Wendy, who also lived with her. So, and Wendy is a member of the church. She had been restored, I guess, about a year, maybe 2 years ago now. So she lost her home. Then we had a couple, the Sorters, who placed membership with us within the past 2 years. I don't recall exactly the time. Faithful members of the church, originally from Florida. They had a married daughter and her family living in an apartment in their house. And then they had a son with his family also living in a portion of the house. So it was 3 families that lost their home. But these families, I think, are doing wonderfully well. They're really handling it very well, and we appreciate that. We've been able to help them financially through the funds that have come in. We've had a wonderful outpouring of aid, and so we've been able to help those families, and that has to be our priority.
Sure, absolutely.
And then the church building, of course, will be rebuilt, but that will come later.
Now your plan is, at least the temporary plan, is to rebuild on the same site?
Yes, and possibly using the very same plans. We have the original blueprints, one of our members does. Of course, the building codes have changed greatly in the last 40-something years, but so there will have to be some changes made. One of the changes that we've already discussed making is enlarging the building.
Right.
We had our radio station and all of our tech equipment. It was built upstairs above the foyer.
I see.
And it was very difficult to get up to it.
Right.
We had a stairway that you wouldn't believe. It was one that I no longer climbed because of having had my knee surgery, but we want to extend the size of the auditorium. Perhaps I've forgotten the exact measurements, maybe 10 feet in the length and maybe 10 feet in the width, in order to have everything pertaining to the tech on the same floor.
I see.
We do have an older membership, and as you get older, you don't want to climb stairs, especially unusually steep ones.
Now, having worked here in the building business many years here in the Gatlinburg area, I know that Gatlinburg is a tough place to build. They are very strict, and for a good reason, but from the building perspective, they can be difficult because they hold to the codes and and more so than maybe a lot of other areas, more rural areas. With the families that you mentioned, do you know, do they have plans to rebuild in where their home was, or do you have any idea what their plans are?
I don't. Now, I'm saying this, and I hope I'm not wrong in it, but my understanding is from talking with all of them that none of them plan to rebuild.
Well,
they're going to look for other homes.
They hope to stay in the area?
They plan to stay in the area. Good. In fact, one of the couples, the Sorters, are hoping to rent a home with the possibility of buying it later that belonged to one of our members who is at the stage where she perhaps needs to think about assisted living or something like that.
Sure.
So they have a possibility. The other 2 do not yet have a possibility of a specific place that I know of.
Now, as far as let's talk for a moment about your immediate needs. We're here in your temporary meeting place, and you've got it fixed up really very nice, and you've told me of a number of different brethren around the country have given you furniture and communion set and just all kinds of things. Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think we're really blessed to have this meeting place. David Barton is sitting back there, and Woody Luna's at the back. Those 2 brethren were instrumental in locating the place and getting the lease on it. We have a lease for 12 months. And then the people who own the building came in and repainted it and got it in a very nice condition for us. Yesterday was our first day to meet in it. Now, we had to have the furniture, of course. We had nothing. We had to begin with that. And so we had about 30 chairs, I believe, that were in our storage shed that weren't burned, maybe more. And we had more. And we had one of our members talk to her employer. He had chairs. He gave her 30 chairs to give to the church. And so we got our seating that way. A church at Cookville, one of the churches in the area, Double Springs, had replaced all of their furniture in their auditorium. They gave us our pulpit and our communion table. we needed songbooks, and an elder from the Bethel Church near Pikeville,
Yes, sir.
Bobby Collier, had called and wanted to know what they could do to help. And in the course of our conversation, I said, "You wouldn't have any old songbooks, would you?" And he said, "Well, we don't," but he said the Wheeler Hill Church, where my mother-in-law attended, changed their books not long ago. And so he said, "I could get those for you, I think." So we have those songbooks that they use. But the interesting thing is, when Brother Collier's father-in-law passed away, then Brother Collier's mother-in-law bought new songbooks for the church at Wheeler Hill in memory of her husband. And that's engraved on these songbooks here.
Right.
But it makes it further interesting to note that this sister in Christ watched our church program on GBN in her later years. She was unable to get out to services, and so every Sunday she wanted to tune into the Gatlinburg Church of Christ program, and she really enjoyed worshiping from her home, with the Gatlinburg Church of Christ. So we had those songbooks delivered. Well, right after we got those songbooks, the publisher of a new songbook that was edited by the late W.D. Jeffcoat.
Yes, sir.
He and the elders of the New Hope Road congregation in Decatur, Georgia, got together, and they called us and they said, "We would like to give you some brand new songbooks." So we have 100 brand new songbooks coming. And then when we get in our building, they've promised us an additional 100.
Wow, that's great.
But we didn't even have a communion set.
Right.
And so I called the Gospel Advocate. The brethren authorized me to find one, and so I called the Advocate and ordered a communion set from them. Well, the lady in the bookstore knew about what had happened to the Gatlinburg church building.
Right.
She talked to Randy Duke, who's the owner of the Advocate, the president of the Advocate Company. And so when she filled my order, she said, "By the way, Brother Duke says there'll be no charge for it." So they provided that for us.
Wow, that's great.
So we've been really blessed. We have everything that we need, to conduct our services. We had a meeting yesterday afternoon to make a list of the other things that we need. The ladies met and decided what they needed. We have 2 classrooms for the classes, and the men met and discussed various things concerning getting our rebuilding program started.
Good deal. So are your immediate needs pretty well covered?
Well, the immediate needs are, we have the building lease for a year, and we've paid for that lease for a year, so that's taken care of.
So what about the long range? I know you plan to rebuild.
Yes.
A lot of people around the country want to know, what can we do to help the Gatlinburg Church?
Well, let me say, first of all, we don't really need relief supplies. We have got more relief supplies than we can handle, and we have a building on our lot where many are stored. A building at Sevierville stores more, and 2 other churches in the area, Pigeon Forge and Seymour, have filled their fellowship halls up with relief supplies provided by the Churches of Christ Disaster Relief Organization in Nashville. So we have plenty of that. A lot of people are wanting to send used clothing. We just don't need it. I mean, I appreciate the thought, but we could, we just have no place for it. And so that's all taken care of, those needs. What we need to do now is to rebuild our church building, and of course continue to help the 3 families until they get fully back on their feet. And we will be helping people in the community, particularly with relief supplies. We've already helped in the restaurant across the street where we eat every Sunday. 6 of the waitresses, who I think they call themselves servers now, whatever, they've become good friends with members of the church. I think probably we're good tippers, I hope. But anyway, 6 of them lost their homes.
Oh my.
And so we have helped those. A church in Georgia sent $1,500 worth of, it was the New Hope Road Church that I mentioned earlier, that's helping with the songbooks. They sent $1,500 worth of cards from Kroger
Wow.
and Walmart.
Right.
And so you can use those as good as cash, you know.
Wow, yeah.
And
yeah.
so we gave these young ladies over
Wow.
here about $125 worth of cards each.
Wow.
And this morning, additionally, we gave them $125 each in cash, you know, to help them.
Yeah.
So we continue to do that in the community. But we need to rebuild. We need to help our families,
Right.
and we've already shared funds that have come in, considerable funds with them, and then we need to rebuild. Now, our rebuilding is going to be very expensive. The building was insured, but to rebuild the same building, but maybe a bit larger and with the other things that we need to make it practical for our use today, is probably going to cost about half as much again as the insurance that we have. But we have had a wonderful outpouring of prayers, words of encouragement, expressions of love, people sharing the memories of having come to Gatlinburg through the years,
Sure.
and financial contributions. This morning I was trying to add it up. I believe we have heard from churches and individuals in 21 states,
Wow.
one U.S. territory, and 3 foreign countries.
Wow.
And financial aid has come from most of these places. I know we have financial aid coming from Australia, from a small congregation there where my son is a preacher. But we are just thrilled with the outpouring that we've had, and it continues to come in. And so that is helping us to take care of all these things and to be prepared for the extra expense on our building. Now, if people want to help us, best thing they can do is not just come in and say, I'm here, what can I do?
Right.
Because we have to take things a step at a time, you know. We may not be ready for that sort of help.
Right.
And it's not certainly to come in and say, I'm on my way, I've got a truckload of used clothing or whatever.
Yes.
And we've had that happen.
Sure.
But the best thing to do to help us is to send a contribution, and then we'll use it as needed. Trust us to use it wisely. But the contribution should be made out to the Gatlinburg Church of Christ, marked Fire Relief, F-I-R-E, Fire Relief.
Okay.
We have an account where that money will go into, separate from our general church working account. And they should simply send it to our address, Post Office Box 361, Gatlinburg, Tennessee, 37738.
Okay.
And many have done that.
And we'll be able to put that on the screen where
Great.
people will be able to
That'll
see
be
it.
wonderful.
And just have you ever been involved in this kind of a disaster?
No, not of this extent.
And what you were saying about how you've helped the waitresses and others, and you told me you have a storage pod set up there at the location of where the building was, and that is filled with relief supplies, and you have plans to make that available to the general public. Would you expound on that a little bit?
Well, we'll need to get an announcement out to the public generally and make it known. We will probably, we haven't nailed it down yet, but probably we will have it open every day, every weekday, every day perhaps except Sunday. We'll probably have it open from, say, 10 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon, and we will have somebody, probably 2 or 3 from the church, stationed there to help people who come to our location. It's at the corner of Trinity and Reagan. It's only a couple of blocks from downtown Gatlinburg. Mention our new location. We have thousands of visitors throughout the year, you know, and any given Sunday we'll have as many or more visitors than we have members.
Sure.
We want people to know where we are.
Okay.
Our address is 109 West Ogle Drive. That's Ogle, O-G-L-E, 109 West Ogle Drive. And to find us, come out Highway 321. And as you come out, you'll come down at 321. Many people know where the Alamo Steakhouse was.
Right.
It's not there anymore. It burned to the ground.
Right.
But if you remember where the Alamo was, come a little bit farther down, you'll see another little restaurant on the left called the Little House of Pancakes. Turn left. And once you turn left, you're on West Ogle Drive. The second building on the left, opposite the Little House of Pancakes, is where we're found. We're in a building that has a big orange door.
There you go.
Remember that, big orange door.
Oh, that'll upset the Alabama fans.
We hope that they'll still come in. We have a back door they can come in if they don't want to come in the front door.
And for those folks, I know a lot of our folks are familiar with Gatlinburg. If you turn at the, I don't remember the traffic light number, the main traffic light right in downtown, you veer to the right to go to the downtown business district.
Right.
You turn a sharp left to come out Highway 321.
That's correct.
And when you top the hill at the wedding chapel at the top of the hill, and start down, you'll pass what used to be the Alamo restaurant.
Right.
And very easy to find, and great facility, and very comfortable and very nice. And one of the things that's interesting, having been through something like this, was interesting to me all those years ago. I still remember the mood of the congregation the first time we were back together after the fire. How were things? Now, I know you met a week ago Sunday with the Sevierville Church.
That's correct.
But yesterday was your first time really back together as a congregation. What was the mood of the folks? And
well, I think everybody was glad to be back together again.
Absolutely.
Now, we were together at Sevierville on both Wednesday nights and Sunday that we were out, but everybody was glad to be back together as a congregation. We were all very happy to see each other. We have a small congregation, but it's close-knit and I think a loving congregation. There were tears shed by some. There was emotion there, you know. But I think a spirit of happiness prevailed. And especially we had quite a number of visitors. The acoustics are wonderful in this small room that we meet in. And our singing was, I think, the best singing I've heard in years.
Wow,
it was just outstanding.
That's great.
It really was good.
Sometimes we get our buildings so big we can't even hear one another sing.
Well, I commented when I got up to teach in the Bible class that it was so nice to have everybody sitting close. Over in our old building, which seated 300 in the auditorium, and when I taught the auditorium class, I had people scattered everywhere.
And it was a long, narrow building.
It was. I tried to get people to sit
good luck.
the front on the right-hand side. It's a lost cause. But here, everybody was close of necessity. And it was so much easier to teach.
Absolutely.
And just much better to have a discussion and questions asked and answered and so on.
Well, let me just wrap up a little bit by saying to our viewing audience, the Lord's Church in Gatlinburg is alive and well. They are quickly back in functioning mode. They do a good work here in the community, and the name of our Lord and His kingdom will be magnified by their work in the coming days and the disaster relief efforts that are made. We will provide, again, the address where you can send funds to help, and they need to rebuild. We need the church here in Gatlinburg, as we need it everywhere, but they have, for many, many years now, over 60 years, have been a voice for the Lord here in this community, and we want to encourage that. And I know, as Brother Rutherford has said, I've seen this a number of times, the outpouring of our brotherhood in a lot of different ways. And it's interesting to me the ingenuity of our brethren in ways that they find to help that you might not think of just right off the top of your head, but our brethren find ways to help, and it is greatly appreciated. Remember the things Brother Rutherford has said about they don't need material things at this point. They don't have the facility or the capability of handling mass amounts of clothing and things like that. The best thing you can do is to send your funds. We'll provide the address. That will help them rebuild their new building. They'll be able to help really, even though there were 3 households, there really
Yes.
are about 6 families, sounds
Yes,
like,
in
that
essence,
have
that's right.
lost
Lost their
everything.
homes, yes.
So that will be their first priority, and as it should be. And so you can be a big help with that. These families, most of us, relatively few people ever experience a fire loss in their lifetime. And so for 6 families to not only lose their place of worship and their home, but to lose every personal possession they had is more devastating than most of us can even imagine. So the church is here to help them and to help them get back on their feet and help them be self-sufficient so they can continue to be a vital part of this congregation. Brother Rutherford, thank you for your time. I greatly appreciate the good work you've done through the years.
Thank you.
And the good work you do here in the community of Gatlinburg. And we're proud of our brethren in Gatlinburg, and they're, as I've seen signs around and T-shirts, Mountain Strong.
Yes.
Nothing like the Sevier County community and
Yes.
and how the fellowship here. And greatly appreciate you.
Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to express this before our brotherhood on television.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.